year European Commission funded project ending now at the end of December. And in a few moments, I will ask my colleagues to present different parts of one of our final outputs that is due to be published at the end of the year. Before that, I would like to give a brief overview of what we did in the past 3 years. So the RDA Tiger project supported working groups that concretely align, harmonize, and standardize open science developments and technologies globally, with the focus on the EOSC ecosystem, as this was an infra-EOSC project. We offered 4 types of support: in-kind facilitation, communication, output support, and landscape engagement services. We offered small grants up to €5,000 for the engagement of external experts to further refine and finalize RDA working group outputs. We provided cascade grants, so larger projects, to either support, again, in more general ways, the RDA outputs, and specifically for the adoption in Europe. And we also developed the RDA knowledge base, which Wim will show in a minute. Some quick numbers. Since we started, we have supported the creation of 13 new statements of work. We have supported 31 plenary sessions. We have provided 8 grants supporting adoption, and just under 15 grants after the IDW 2025. 20 groups have received facilitation support, 3 groups have received dedicated communication support, 7 cascade grants were provided, and 8 external expert grants. Our cascade grants were, as I said, sort of in 2 categories: more general working group support projects, like the interactive web interface for the GORC working group, and the developing an advanced and secure environment for data visitation across the RDA project. And as well as a series of projects enabling the adoption of various outputs in Europe, some of these projects more than 1 outputs. These cascade grants are now wrapping up at the end of, not of the year, but at the end of the month. So there will be a lot more information available on the website about our grantees and their outputs. So since we started, supported the creation of 12 new working groups. 2 are still in the process of producing a case statement. 300 new RDA members have joined the RDA, actively working on supported working groups. 96 co-chairs have been supported. Of our portfolio of supported groups, 9 had already started when we started looking after them. And we have supported the development of 13 new outputs and recommendations, with a lot more coming before the end of the year. And this is an overview of all of our working groups receiving just in-kind support, not including all the other types of support that I've referenced. So I will now call my colleagues to discuss the different parts of the RDA Tiger Landscape Report, which is a large-scale landscape analysis mapping the RDA outputs, and in some cases also interest groups, to 4 main impact areas: the EOSC Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, implementation challenges and multi-annual roadmaps, priority stages, the EOSC Association Opportunity Area Expert Groups and Task Forces, and also looking beyond EOSC at national priorities, and also the EOSC-related Horizon Europe projects. And why did we started doing this? To facilitate the implementation of RDA working group outputs to address the European data challenges by directing the community to the relevant wealth of resources in the RDA, and to provide a resource for the European data professionals to help them navigate the working groups and their outputs. And by doing all of that, to also provide an impact report for the value of RDA and RDA Tiger to the region and to EOSC. And with that, I'd like to call Lisa Lesalu, my colleague from the RDA Europe team, who will present the mapping to the SRIA. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Alex. So Alex already gave a brief introduction into the landscape report. I'll go back to the slide for a second. And we heard what we mapped and why we did it. I'll give a brief note on the methodology. So we adopted a mixed methods approach to this mapping, combining desk research with surveys, and also used the RDA knowledge base that Wim will be presenting in a couple of minutes. And we did, to facilitate users' browsing of the report or reading of the report, we also integrated visualizations into the report using a tool called Kumu that our colleague from CoData, Nina Krau, quite helpfully found for us. And I quickly wanted to show you what Kumu does, so you would get a sense of how you can browse or engage with the report once it's fully published. For that, I need to change to here. And this now shows the visualization. So you see here mapping to EOS CREA challenges, implementation challenges. And for each of the challenges, you see them mapped into RDA working groups. Throughout the landscape report, you find a number of these types of visualizations of mapping to SRIA, mapping to ERIC and ESFRI landscape, mapping to the European open science policies at member state level that Hilary will be also presenting, and you will see more of Kumu, I think, also there very briefly. So this, we hope, will make this report more engaging for all of us and the users, and help you, make the best use out of it. Coming to now the SRIA implementation challenges. So we looked at both the EOS Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, the SRIA, as well as the multi-annual roadmap for stages 2 and 3, so 2023 to 2024 and 2025 to 2027. This slide here focuses on SRIA implementation challenges and specifically, and shows how RDA working groups map to those challenges. We see that both current and past working groups, it's important to note that the landscape is also looking at past working groups that have already completed their activity, because we're also looking at the outputs, and only those working groups that have completed their activity have outputs. So we see that current and past RDA working groups have addressed or are currently addressing gaps across all implementation challenges. For reasons related to the overall composition and interest of the RDA community, some implementation challenges are addressed more frequently within the community than others. In particular, we see that a large number of RDA working groups addresses the metadata and ontologies implementation challenge, as well as the resource provider environments implementation challenge. However, we also see that there are working groups, maybe a small number, but there are working groups that are relevant to any and all implementation challenges. So really we see that across SRIA, if you look at the challenges, you do find an RDA working group that is working on resolving those challenges, already has developed outputs that support addressing SRIA challenges. And here we wanted to show you two specific SRIA challenges. So the metadata and ontologies challenge, which, as I mentioned before, is one of the challenges where perhaps there is most ongoing work within the RDA. And then the fair metrics and certification challenge, where there might be less ongoing work in RDA, but it's not less important work. So for the metadata and ontologies implementation challenge, we mapped a total of 23 current and past RDA working groups to this implementation challenge. The groups mapped tend to focus on domain agnostic or cross-domain activities, including high-level standards and schemas for metadata to facilitate interoperability, creating methods to establish crosswalks between existing ontologies and other semantic artifacts, and searchable catalogs of metadata standards. However, there are also working groups focused on the development of domain-specific standards and guidance on metadata and ontologies for fields ranging from wind energy to material sciences to agricultural sciences to social sciences and humanities. So while the majority of the groups perhaps also expectedly might be working in a cross-domain space, we do within the RDA find a lot of disciplinary experts trying to create and work on interoperability this way. When we move to the FAIR metrics and certification implementation challenge, there is a relatively small number of working groups relevant to this implementation challenge. We mapped 12 groups overall, out of which 6 are past or complete groups and 6 are currently active groups. And when doing this mapping, our analysis the conclusions that we draw focus on the fact that the FAIR data principles are well established, broadly accepted. However, concrete examples of FAIR implementation and how this can be measured is still very much an ongoing task. The assessment of FAIR requires both discipline-specific implementations and higher-level discussions on how to measure and compare fairness in a meaningful way across domains and disciplines. Of particular significance here in relation to the impact of RDA working groups and their activities on EOSC and the European data landscape more broadly is the fact that activities of RDA groups, and here maybe specifically 2 RDA working groups, and I'm referring here to the FAIR data maturity model and FAIR research software working groups. Those can be built on to address this FAIR metrics and FAIR assessment challenges. FAIR data maturity models, for example, has already been adopted and implemented in a number of Horizon Europe and prior Horizon projects. For example, FAIR's FAIR, that use the FAIR data maturity model to develop the FAIR assessment tool that I think many of us know quite well, the Fuji tool. And this here is just examples of 2 challenges. So if you go into the landscape report, you will be able to draw conclusions for all implementation challenges like that and see outputs that are relevant and have been already perhaps adopted or could be adopted to respond to those SRIA and multi-annual roadmap challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, I would like to invite Nina Grau from Codata to present the mapping of RDA outputs to the European project landscape.
Thank you, Alex. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. So I'm really pleased to present the work done on the mapping of RDA activities working group to the European project, and especially the Horizon Europe project. So the RDA mission is to provide and support best and innovative practices to open, share, and reuse data. So the first step was to identify Horizon projects and calls that are addressing the same objective. So we identified 2 of them, the InfraIOSC and the area call. So InfraIOSC call of the research infrastructure work program, aims to support the web affair and also support the EOSC development. For the ERA core, which is European Research Area core of the WIDERA work program, aims to implement area priorities, and one of them is related to open science policies and practices. So the ERA program area calls that are supporting these priorities will be called ERA Open Science. So once we collect all this Horizon Europe program projects, we need to identify and determine criteria to map them with RDA working groups, and we identify 5 of them, which are related to the scalability, the federation, the technical and the policy evolution, the fair interoperability and fair compliance, and the wider user base. So with the help of AI, we categorize each of the working group main activity based on the case of statement, and each of the Horizon Europe projects based on the topic description of the call. So here the graphics are representing the distribution of the criteria among the 3 groups. So once we succeed to do the categorization, we are able to map them based on the category with the help of the Kumu, the tool already presented by Liz just before. So with this methodology, we are able not only to map RDA working group activities to the current Horizon Europe projects, but also to the future Horizon Europe projects by looking at the new area research area policy agenda, but also the next EOSC development phase, and also to the new structure of the upcoming Horizon Europe framework program. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Nina. Next, I'd like to invite Hilary Hanaho, RDA Foundation Secretary General, to present the mapping of RDA outputs to national open science policies.
Thank you very much. Good morning. How are you all doing? Do you know, what I've just realized is it now underlines the fact that RDA is very complex, right? We have all this mapping, which is a wonderful piece of work, and we're very grateful in RDA Global for all this project and this work that's been done to showcase, if you like, the real richness of the community and the work that they've done in different ways. And I'm going to tell you about, but if I know how to, oh yeah, the gold clicker here, sorry. Yeah, so I'm going to make it even more confusing and more mapping. Again, with the Kumo tool, we used a disclaimer, by the way, that we have an account in the RDA Secretariat, or more than one account, with Claude. Using the subscribed account, Claude assisted with this mapping. It was all verified by humans afterwards, but we did use AI. I don't think we would have been able to do it if it were not possible. So this piece of work that I will talk to you about is how we mapped the RDA working in interest groups and outputs to the national open science plans in the European Union, so 27 member states. It is live. I don't think I have a URL or a QR code on the slides, but if you go to the RDA website and you look for the value of for national open science policies, you'll find the link. So it is obviously, the idea was to try and understand the community connections and also map these to the open science plan. So I'm going to show you the French example because that's the one I used yesterday. And as you can see, and the first side, of course, is the project overview. It gives you insights into what was done and how to navigate the map. There are all 27 EU countries, and we have 28 open science taxonomic domains that were included. Yeah, and then you can filter it by element. So, of course, you can choose the country that you're interested in, and then the different, if you like, elements of the taxonomic domains, which are color-coded. And you can also filter by coverage, excuse me. there are 3, of course, is full coverage, which means that basically the National Open Science Plan and there's a one-to-one mapping, if you like, between the two. It's very comprehensive, or it's partial coverage, or some areas are not specifically addressed. So in case, so you click on the country, and the flag, as you can see, opens up. And then you get, if you like, a quick overview of the National Science Plan in question, the source for which where we sourced it, etc., and some other details. And then you can go over it by the coverage by colour-coded connection. So let's say we chose one here. This is open access in France. There are 3 areas that are covered in it. And then you see the open access publishing, the repository systems, and open access policies. And then by clicking on the line, and by the way, it does work in all browsers, I checked, but you need to press the control button. Somebody told me it didn't work in Firefox, but it does for me. So you collect the color-coded connection, and that will show you the connection, between France and the open access publishing, and the definition, and then you can get coverage put through the details and quotes there. And then if you click on the actual bubble, you will see the RDA activities or groups that are mapped or included in that particular area. Yeah. So, I'll stop it there for a moment because that's my next presentation. So, ideally, we did this for Europe. We found it very valuable. We've had requests from outside of Europe for it to be done. It's a rather large piece of work, and you can see confusing. We've been asked to share some of the source data. It's a very big Excel file that helped us to do that, to show as well so that countries can actually compare themselves, which is an interesting concept. So to say that, you want to see how you're doing compared to your perhaps European counterpart. But we found it very valuable. It also has helped us to understand. We are aware, by the way, so again, the disclaimer that, of course, we have a methodology. The methodology was to take the statements of work, the summaries that were put in by the groups, and in some cases, of course, we will possibly identify the fact that there are groups that are not showing up where they might also be relevant. So we've decided that we will, in the next part of next year, supplement this work by asking the groups themselves if they would like to validate their inputs. We've asked our national and regional contacts to validate the inputs for the open science policies that we've used, but we haven't done the opposite. So we will do that then. And that's it. I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. And next, Wim Hugo from DANS, who will present the RDA knowledge base and its contribution to the landscape report as a use case. Thank you, Wim.
Thanks, Alex, and good morning, everyone. Let me see if I can switch to a live presentation. No, let's try it this way. Okay, so many of you might have been introduced to the RDA knowledge base over the course of the last month or two, because we had a series of launch events, both digitally and physically at the RDA plenary, and a number of webinars to introduce the community to the resource. But effectively, the RDA knowledge base presents all of the RDA outputs and supporting materials that have been created to date in a searchable dashboard and typical sort of repository type of view. And I'm not going to go into it in detail, except to say that this represents a fairly well curated body of corpus of outputs from RDA to date. And we are finalizing the arrangements to keep it in sync in future with the RDA website and with publications from RDA that go to Zenodo for the moment. So all of these resources are available to us if we then start to consider the interaction between the RDA knowledge base and the work that was otherwise done in RDA Tiger in respect of landscape analysis. So on the one hand, then, we have this RDA knowledge base with its semantically linked RDA outputs and support materials. With semantically linked, we mean that vocabularies and registries that are important to RDA are linked to the outputs and supplementary materials, so lists of working groups or vocabularies describing pathways and so on. And then on the other hand, we have the landscape analysis that's been introduced now in the last few minutes, together with working groups that we have a good connection to via the support provided to them by RDA Tiger. So we were looking for ways to leverage these two emerging resources. And it's early days, but initially it was possible, of course, when compiling the landscape report, just to create composite search criteria in the knowledge base to find relevant working groups, outputs, support materials that fits a certain topic or range of topics. So that is straightforward. But we also added or have been able to add manual annotations to the knowledge base. So what that entails is that if you find a web resource of interest, you can go and highlight some text in that web resource, typically an HTML page or a PDF, and then link it semantically with RDA-related vocabularies and free text descriptions and save it in the knowledge base. So that's a mechanism for finding new resources that might be of use either to your working group or community and so on. So the mechanics of that has already been in place for some time. Now, late in the day, some of the working groups that we have been supporting in the RDA Tiger project and the landscape analysis work or report work has been concluded. So we have a month and a half or so left to make proper use or best possible use of these outputs. So what we're currently busy working on is the ability to take landscape analysis from working groups, for instance, that have been captured in reference managers such as Zotero, or have been captured in GitHub repositories. The MOMSI group, working group, for instance, captured all of their landscape analysis as issues in a GitHub repository. We can have a conversation over a beer about the significance of this, but if that's the way they want to work, we need to support it. And then also, of course, spreadsheets or comma-delimited tables are capable of being imported into the knowledge base. So that extends the support materials and formal outputs to include a wide variety of semantically annotated web-based resources. And I just want to pause here to highlight one of my, let's say, current obsessions. We spend hundreds of millions of euros in Europe on generating best practices and guidelines and implementation, reference implementations and the like. And as I put it, these things get written into PDFs and then they go to the big PDF graveyard in the cloud. Because it's very difficult for anyone doing any kind of landscape analysis afterwards to find the relevant bits in this enormous corpus of available guidance and relevant materials. So annotation, if you touch it that one time and you take the trouble to annotate that resource with semantically linked vocabularies, it makes it 100 times simpler for the next guy to find that stuff again. So it's a change in working practice that I hope will eventually take root. It's not going to be in my lifetime as a working person, but hopefully it will happen. Okay, so that then gets us to a point where we have all of these. Not sure what happened there. There's a color that's not being reflected in our presentation. There should be a circle in the middle of this that highlights this idea of a virtuous circle, because this will quickly get to a really useful critical mass if we start doing it, because every annotation that we add makes the next landscape analysis that much more useful. And if people then commit those landscape analysis with the additional context that they've added, cross-linking, as it were, of all the different semantic links, if they then recommit that back into the knowledge base-like environment, it becomes like a compound interest situation. So we're hoping that this can become something that we can advocate for, to make what is often in the RDA context voluntary work that much more valuable for future reuse. I'm just going to conclude by saying that the landscape work that was done now recently is of course very useful in a different context because it provides us with cross-linking behind the scenes, linking working groups to SRIA challenges, for argument's sake, that we can then link through our graph-based knowledge base to individual outputs or support materials or annotations. So let's hope that we can tie all of this up before the end of December and really leave a valuable resource for the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Wim, and thank you, everyone. Are there any questions, either from the room or online, about any of our presentations on the landscape report or the knowledge base? Yes. Sorry, we'll get you a microphone. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. That was really interesting. I'm coming at this from a policymaker angle. So obviously you've mapped RDA outputs to things. I wondered if you could expand a bit more on if RDA envisions using this output to sort of inform its strategy and maybe actually aligning what it does more with the policies being developed in those areas as well, rather than it just being a sort of database, as it were, but actually using it to influence things and change its approach in areas.
I'm guessing that's for me, Paul, so I'll take that. We did a little bit of work this year with, so I think the first disclaimer is that RDA is not a policy body. We also had a statement on that once, for many reasons. But what we did realise was that actually all the work that the community does is of great value to policymakers and funders. So we tried to find a way of, if you like, encapsulating that. This year we did some workshops, journal policies, the journal policy framework, research evaluation, and the national PID strategies. So there were three areas that we chose as, and we said, okay, they seem to be relatively successful. It was a pilot. Let's see what we will do in 2026. So I think that this is actually, and the fact that we did this report for the Tiger Project has been very helpful for the actual global secretariat. What we would probably need to do, though, is to investigate and analyse how that some of the common themes that maybe are emerging in a European context would map and be relevant as well globally. Yes, because while this is a European context, of course, it's all really very valuable for global, but we also need to, if you like, bring that in. But I think that it's a great starting point for us to do it. We did receive good feedback on what we did already. We had a suggestion yesterday that the Global Open Research Commons model, which is exploding a little bit in term for many different reasons, might be an area to look at. So yeah, a long answer to the yes, we will look at it the top down with the capacity that we would have in 2026 to do it.
Maybe just an additional comment there. In the knowledge base, we have already mapped the Global Open Research Commons elements at this, let's say, the second level of detail to outputs and support materials. And it forms part of the vocabulary that can be used to annotate content in the web. So as an organizing scheme, I think it's useful to direct people towards a topic. It would be very useful.
Thank you. Before closing this RDA Tiger session and the project, I would like to leave you with some feedback from the community because it was a service provision project. And these are a few quotes that we collected from our supported working groups during interviews we conducted at IDW last month. So we are delighted to see that the community engaged with the project and appreciated our work, and it's really beautiful to see those quotes. And the interviews will be published on the RDA website in next week. So I have been holding you from coffee now, but I do have one very quick public service announcement. So, we would like to remind you of the RDA Technical Advisory Board elections. The deadline for candidacy is coming up on the 24th of November, and you can submit your candidacy to be elected for a 3-year term as a member of the technical backbone of the RDA, offering expertise and guidance to Council. Thank you very much. Enjoy your coffee, and we will see you in 30 minutes.